Good evening. The Granger Avenue traffic calming meeting will begin shortly. Please review this slide for some technology overview information. We're also going to launch a demographic poll that the City of Ann Arbor uses to capture some information on outreach. If you have time to fill out the answers on that poll, they are anonymous. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll also pull this poll up again. But for those dialing in or who may not have the screen up, this slide does say technology overview, things to know. This meeting will be recorded. Attendee video cameras are disabled. Attendee screen share is prohibited. All attendees are muted. Instructions to unmute will be covered. You can leave and rejoin the meeting at any time. Multiple opportunities for questions will be provided throughout the presentation. Presentation and additional materials are available at a2gov.org/tc-granger-ps. If you're just joining us, we're going to start the Granger Avenue traffic calming meeting in just a few minutes. Please review this slide for a technology overview. And for those of you dialing in or who may not have the screen up, the slide does say technology overview, things to know. Meeting will be recorded. Attendee video cameras are disabled. Attendee screen share is prohibited. All attendees are muted. Instructions to unmute will be covered. You can leave and rejoin the meeting at any time. Multiple opportunities for questions will be provided throughout the presentation. Presentation and additional materials are available at a2gov.org/tc-granger-ps. And we have launched a demographic survey. This is a survey that the City of Ann Arbor uses to gain a better understanding of those who we're reaching and to find ways we can improve public engagement efforts. So if you have a moment to answer those questions, we will put this survey back up at the end of the presentation. And it's 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and close the poll for now. Like I said, at the end of the presentation, the survey will pop up again. So if you didn't get a chance to complete it or to answer any of the questions, you'll have a chance at the end. So hello, everyone. This is the Granger Avenue traffic calming meeting number 1. On behalf of the City of Ann Arbor, I would like to thank you all for joining us, giving us this opportunity to engage with your community and the resident-initiated efforts surrounding traffic calming on Granger Avenue. We're very eager to share our presentation with you this evening and hopefully gather some feedback on what we have to share. So before we get into the presentation, we'll run through some introductions. My name is Christy Thelen. I'm a licensed engineer in training at Wade Trim Associates, an engineering firm here based in Southeast Michigan. My role with this project is to work on behalf of the City of Ann Arbor to help coordinate projects under the city's traffic calming program. I'm joined by Lori Pollock. Lori works in the traffic group at Wade Trim, and she's one of the professional engineers that I'll be working under as we continue to develop this project. I'm also joined by Chris Wall. Chris works with the Municipal Services Group at Wade Trim. He's also a professional engineer and has been serving as client manager throughout the project. Rounding out the Granger Avenue project team are Andrea Wright and Cyrus Nahidi. As we're working on behalf of the City of Ann Arbor, we've been working very closely with Andrea and Cyrus, who both have been part of the traffic calming program for some time now. And Andrea Wright, she's an engineering analyst for the city and is the traffic calming program facilitator. She's been supplying us with all of the materials and information for the program and its procedures. Cyrus Nahidi is a professional engineer with the city. Cyrus has both experience with the traffic calming program and Granger Avenue specifically. So here's our meeting agenda for tonight. Some sections will go quicker than others just to give as much time as possible to feedback. So in case you're not familiar or you need a refresher, we'll go through a quick technology overview. If you've called into this meeting, you'll be able to raise your hand to speak by dialing *9. When recognized to speak by the last 3 digits of your phone number, you may unmute by dialing *6. You won't be able to participate in the Q&A function, but if you have internet access, this presentation has been posted online at the project website, and you can follow along. And it actually looks like no one has dialed in, so there may be additional information on how to participate if you dial in, but I won't cover it as much since it looks like everyone is on a web device here. So if you are on a computer or other device, you have 2 ways of asking questions or providing feedback. First is the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. This will notify the host and all the co-hosts that you are requesting to speak. So if you can, we'll just take a minute to practice raising hands. Great. And I have the power to lower them. Nice. So the other way to participate is to type your questions or comments. To do this, you'll select the Q&A button that's next to the raised hand button at the bottom of your screen. A chat window will pop up, and you'll be able to type your question or comment into the text box and hit enter. So whether you're on a phone or computer, please ask your questions freely via chat or hand raising. We'll be monitoring the chat throughout the meeting and work to address those questions in a timely manner. There will also be multiple points throughout the presentation where community feedback will be requested through Zoom's polling feature. Once the poll is launched, it will automatically pop up for web device users. All you'll have to do is select your answer and then press submit. When the poll is closed, results will automatically pop up, and to stop viewing the results, just press close. Please know that computer or web polling is anonymous. And then I still see that it doesn't look like we have anyone who's dialed in, but if you were polling by phone, That polling is not anonymous. You would have to raise your hand and verbally give your answer. So as a practice, we will launch our first poll question. Question reads, do you live in the designated project area, Granger Avenue between State Street and Packard Street? Response options are yes, I live in the project area, or no, I do not live in the project area. If there is anyone dialing in, you can raise your hand and I can record your polling answer. Looks like everyone has responded. So we'll go ahead and end the poll and the results should pop up. Great. Looks like everyone present tonight does live in the project area. So moving on. During the presentation, and especially during any feedback from your fellow community members, please keep these Zoom norms in mind. Start on time, end on time. I will put an asterisk to that end on time. I want to say I really appreciate everyone taking time out of their evening to listen and participate in this meeting. We communicated that this meeting would be from 6 p.m. to 7:30. And this being my first traffic calming meeting, I may have been a bit naive in thinking this meeting would be any less than 2 hours. So because of that, we may end up going past 7:30 tonight, but the other presenters and I will be keeping the pace brisk so we can leave as much time as possible for comments and questions. Other things to consider, use the raise your hand feature to be recognized to talk. There will only be one speaker at a time. Move to a quiet area and silence any background noise when speaking. Speak loud and clear so all can hear. Everyone will be provided a chance to speak before a repeat speaker. Please be respectful of other ideas and perspectives. Try to distinguish between I know and I think, or in other words, please try to distinguish between fact versus opinion. And lastly, any inappropriate written and or verbal comment or language, including personal attack and accusations, that will result in that attendee being removed from the meeting. If there's anything that you think should be added, please drop it in the Q&A or raise your hand. All right, we'll keep going then. So what is traffic calming? Here's a definition for you. It's from the Transportation Journal, dated 1997. Traffic calming is the combination of mainly physical measures that reduce the negative effects of motor vehicle use, alter driver behavior, and improve conditions for non-motorized street users. All of that is to say that the concept of traffic calming and even traffic calming within the city of Ann Arbor is not new. Traffic calming in Ann Arbor is a 5-step program. It's available in the traffic calming guidebook that is available online. This program has been approved by the city council and it's largely resident initiated. So step 1, we started with the resident initiated petition. Any data used to reference this project will be from the petition received October 2019. I know some of you may be familiar with a petition that was submitted prior to 2017, but that petition did not qualify due to the structure of the traffic calming program at that time. That older petition data was not used for this project. So any reference to a petition moving forward is in reference to the one from October 2019. So again, the numbers you see here are from the resident-initiated petition received October 2018. This summary shows that the program requirements for both area representation and minimum points were met. Step 2 is the initial questionnaire. This is where you probably first saw the Wade Trim name and logo pop up with the City of Ann Arbor. This step is where we collected feedback about existing conditions through that initial questionnaire. So that was mailed out to project area residents October of this year, actually. And those who completed and submitted the questionnaire, 88% were in support of continuing with the traffic calming program. So that is what brought us to, oh, you know what, this image shows based on the questionnaire feedback that the entire stretch of Granger Avenue, the entire stretch is a speeding and traffic volumes concern. So based on the feedback we received, it's the whole area. It's not just Golden and Packard. It's not just Park and Golden. It's the whole stretch. And the stars are marking where important pedestrian crosses are within the neighborhood. The questionnaire response summary is available on the project website. If anyone has additional concerns or clarification related to existing conditions on Granger, we can take a moment if you want to raise your hand or use the Q&A.
There are no questions, Christy.
Okay, thank you, Lori.
Yep.
So we'll move on then. So that brings us to today. That's where we are this evening. Step 3, meeting number 1. This is where we'll advance our understanding of the options that we have and gather additional feedback based on the starter idea we will present. And next, we'll launch another poll before we start discussing the device toolbox. This poll question reads, have you reviewed the traffic calming guidebook, specifically the device toolbox found on pages 9 through 12? Options are yes, I'm all set, yes, but I would still appreciate a refresher, or no. Looks like we have 7 out of 8 who have answered the poll. I'll give it just a few moments still before we close it. All right, we'll just close it. It looks like we're more than half of us, almost all of us have reviewed the guidebook. Most of us would like a refresher. So we will start discussing some of the available devices. And I'm going to hand it over to Lori Pollock to walk through the device toolbox.
Thank you, Christy. Can you hear me? I just want to make sure, Bryce. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. As Christy mentioned earlier, I'm Lori Pollock and I'm a traffic engineer supporting the city along with Christy on the traffic calming effort. And we'll be discussing some various traffic calming treatments and devices. On pages 9 through 12 of the traffic calming guidebook, devices are grouped into things you drive over and things you drive around. I would like to mention a disclaimer about this portion of the presentation. Some of the devices that are in the guidebook will not be covered tonight. This is because they are not feasible for this specific project, either from an engineering perspective or the Ann Arbor Fire Department has requested that we not use them. Because of the structure of this program and City Council approval procedure, potential traffic calming treatments are limited to those found in the device toolbox. This means if it's not in the toolbox, it's not an option for this project. Some of the commonly suggested solutions that are not included in this program are stop signs, cul-de-sacs or street closures, police enforcement, new sidewalk installation, and removal of existing devices. If you'd like additional information on any of these topics, please refer to the guidebook or the A2Gov website. Next slide. Things you drive over are devices that slow down motor vehicle traffic speeds by creating a sense of discomfort for the driver if traveled over or at a speed exceeding 25 miles an hour. A typical speed hump is shown in this example from Wells Street. It's 12 feet wide, 3 inches high with a parabolic shape, extending the full width of the street except for the gutter. Studies have found many benefits of speed hump treatments, which may include a 20 to 25% average speed reduction, an 18% average traffic volume reduction, and a 13% average crash reduction. The lower height is designed for the ease of bike usage and bike safety. Some other notes regarding speed humps are, if previously permitted, vehicles can park on speed humps. Trash cans can be placed on speed humps if necessary. However, the fire department does not prefer this type of device. Shown in this photo is a standard speed table image. Typically, they're 22 feet wide, 10 feet wide with the center platform and tapered sides, 3 inches high, and extend the full width of the street except for the gutter. Some benefits of the speed table includes the platform width can be customized. They've been found to support a 12% average traffic volume reduction, and they've also been found to reduce crashes by an average of 45%. Other features of the speed table include the vehicle speed reduction is less than the speed hump. The lower height is designed for bicycle safety. And if previously permitted, vehicles can also park on speed humps or speed table. Trash cans can be placed on them as well if necessary. And the fire department will typically prefer this over speed humps. Shown here is a raised crosswalk on Forest Avenue, which is similar to a speed table, but typically they're 18 feet wide, 6 foot wide with a center platform marked with a crosswalk striping, 3 inches high, tapered on each side, and extend the full width of the street except for gutters. Some benefits include a 20 to 25% speed reduction, an 18% average traffic volume reduction, a 13% average crash reduction, and these are also found to increase pedestrian visibility to motorists, which is a safety benefit. The installation of the raised crosswalk must be compliant with the American Disabilities Act or ADA standards for accessible design. Parking on a crosswalk is illegal in any case, whether it's raised or not. Another traffic calming treatment that you drive over is the raised intersection. As shown here, each leg of the intersection is ramped to raise the entire intersection 3 inches. Pedestrian crosswalks may also be marked and raised to the same elevation. The raised intersection improves pedestrian visibility to the driver's view and encourages motorists to yield to pedestrians within the crosswalk. These type of treatments may require utility work, and the installation of them must be compliant with the ADA standards for accessible design. Are there any questions regarding the devices that you drive over? Okay.
We do have a raised hand from Jeff,
Oh, okay.
and I will unmute you, Jeff. Go ahead.
Hi, Jeff. Can you repeat the question?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Sure. As far as the fire department, it was mentioned earlier in the presentation that either the fire department preferred not to use or not to use certain traffic calming devices. As far as the three mentioned in the drive over portion, the raised crosswalk, speed hump, and speed table, it seems that the fire department prefers to not go over speed humps, but is that something that could be allowed based on input from citizens and also as a recommendation from the traffic engineers?
So the speed humps, they tend to slow all traffic down, which it would include the fire trucks and the equipment. So although their preference is to not have them, they are something that are included as treatments included in the traffic calming program. They may be allowed.
Thank you.
Lori, we also have a question in the chat from Cherry. Is the only real difference between the hump and the table that the table is flat in the middle?
So there are a few differences. So there is the center flat platform in the speed table with the tapered sides. Usually the speed table is a little bit wider across from the edge of the roadway to edge of roadway. So typically they're around 22 feet wide. And then I think the speed hump was the other option. Those are a little bit narrower, typically around 12 feet wide. They're also parabolic in shape. And then they extend the full width of the street except for the gutter. So as far as design and actual the physical aspect of it, the biggest difference is that flattened center. There are some other minor differences, but the main difference between the two is that flat area in the middle.
Thank you, Lori.
Yep.
I don't see any other questions on here. Oh, we do have one more. Oh, follow up to that one about the difference between speed humps and speed tables. Do the speed humps slow down the traffic more?
So the speed hump was an average of 20 to 25% reduction in the vehicle speeds. And then the speed table, let me see. We did not have that listed. I will find out the reduction in the speeds for those. And we can get back to you. I'll come back to this question. I'll look it up.
Hey, Lori.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I'll add a little more context to that. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. This is Cyrus Nahidi from the city, and I'll just offer that the percentage, those statistics we offer about speed reduction or traffic reduction, crash reduction, those are from sort of larger studies done by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So what I guess I'd give context to in terms of, rather than focusing on a particular statistic and how much it slows down traffic, one device versus another. Our experience of the city has been that while there are important differences between the devices and how much they can have an individual impact on vehicle behavior, generally a project is sort of best viewed as how overall, like all devices on a project area, like in this case Granger, how all the devices together slow down traffic is probably a bit more I suppose indicative of how it's performing. So I guess I would say, like, whatever speed data we collect, assuming that this project continues and that a certain design is picked and certain devices are installed, I would personally put that whatever data change is related to that, I would ascribe that more to the project overall and less to any individual device. So I hope that helps give some context, but we focus a little bit less on individual devices and how much impact they have, because they're really part of the sort of surrounding context. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Cyrus. Were there any other questions?
I don't have any other questions on here, but I would like to add to Jeff's question about the option of speed humps and the Ann Arbor Fire Department. I did want to add that both the Ann Arbor Fire and Police Departments are involved in the process. We do, as Cyrus was saying, we do want to look at the devices as a whole, and whether the benefits of the devices that we propose, how they weigh against the overall safety or the efficacy of the emergency response. So speed humps or speed tables, they've been reported to slow emergency response time down by increasing it a few seconds. So we do have to look to their opinion and feedback on whether that would weigh against the benefit of a speed hump or any of the devices, really. And I see Jeff is raising his hand again, so I'll
Okay.
open the microphone to him real quick before we move on, Lori.
Okay.
Okay, we're all set?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, thank you. And I'm trying not to interrupt anyone else too, because I know a lot of people have questions and concerns. One comment I'd like to make based on fact, and other people can correct me, the exact data escapes me right now, but as far as our police force, based on what I've read, the data, and from personal experience with acquaintances related to police officers, our police force is down to what could be considered a minimum. Number one, and it's important to have, of course, a police force that arrives at locations in a timely manner. But if there is maybe a conflict down the road, and I don't know if they keep that data, I'm wondering how many times within maybe the past year or so on average, the fire department has gone down Granger Avenue. So things like that should also be weighed against, I know how dangerous Granger is for pedestrians, with people blowing through stop signs, with people speeding, with motorcyclists that do wheelies. I sent in a video to Mayor Taylor. So the street is actually in and of itself incredibly dangerous. So I know that the fire department and police department are very important. My concern is that how dangerous the street is. And I'd just like to leave that comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More questions, Laura, you can go ahead.
Okay. So the other group of devices in our toolbox are things that you drive around. This type of device slows vehicle speeds by creating the perception of less room for driver error and the appearance that the road is visually or physically narrower. A typical residential traffic circle shown here. Raised circular islands of pavement, mostly common at four-legged intersections. It does not change the existing traffic controls such as stopping, etc. The benefits of the residential traffic circle include a 10% reduction in mid-block speed, a 70% reduction in intersection crashes, a 28% reduction in overall crashes, and they can also provide an attractive gateway to the neighborhood. Some things to consider with traffic circles. They're found to have a minimal effect on cut-through traffic. Left turns may be difficult for larger vehicles. They may shift the vehicles closer to the crosswalks. Bicycles navigate with traffic around the circle. They may contribute to possible driver confusion, and they must maintain 20 feet for emergency response vehicles. Next slide, please. Another treatment to drive around is a neighborhood gateway treatment. Typically, these are a physical landmark that indicates a change from a higher speed arterial road to a lower speed residential or commercial district. These treatments increase awareness for residential speeds. They might require additional right-of-way, and neighborhood or adjacent property owners would bear landscaping installation and maintenance costs. Does anyone have any questions about the devices that you drive around?
We do have a raised hand from Cherry.
Okay.
I think we have to, either we can unmute Jerry or Jerry can unmute themselves now.
Oh, so can you hear me now?
Yep, we
Yep.
can.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm slow on things. I've been around that little traffic circle up on Yost Boulevard. Would that fit anywhere on this section of Granger we're actually talking about?
I'll just offer, I think we're getting into this part of the slide, but what we're presenting today are starter ideas. So there need to be a little bit more field detail, but we think one might be possible in one location, but you're right, there are some, there would need to be some confirmation of what's
Okay, I did not find that was something that I would think would work. So that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Lori and Christy, I'm thinking there might need to be some clarification on the devices that you drive over and the devices that you drive around, and what the fire department said not they wouldn't allow. I think those statements might be confusing for some people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so the ones, some of the speed table and speed hump, the vertical aspect type treatments. You know, it's the preference to have a flat road by the fire department, because those type of treatments, the vertical element of it does slow down all vehicles, including the fire. But these treatments, you know, looking at the safety aspect, as Cyrus mentioned, and the context of the program and traffic calming, you know, depending on what comes out of the analysis and the final results of this, they could be allowed. They aren't disallowed. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah,
I'm
so
gonna-
there, go ahead.
Sorry, Chris, it's Andrea. I don't mean to chime in. So hi all, it's Andrea, I'm the program facilitator. I used to attend a lot of these meetings. So to clarify, the fire department has veto power of everything. So of traffic calming specifically. So we always present our starter idea to them first, even before we take it to you all as the public. So what they're going to get to soon, and I'd like to move forward at that point to facilitate a further discussion, is the starter idea that's already been vetted through the fire department. They already feel comfortable with what is being proposed. And then it's open to discussion with you all for what you guys live on this street. So it's what you feel comfortable with having to live with day in and day out. So if you have any questions in relation to what I just said, feel free to drop them in the chat, raise your hand. Otherwise, I propose moving forward just because of time.
I don't have any other questions in the chat, Lori. So I think we can, oh. Yes, I think we can move on. Thank you.
Okay. And then one other thing to mention is if you'd like to see examples of how these devices were used, there is an interactive map on the traffic calming website that shows the past and current projects within the city. You can go to this at a2gov.org traffic calming, and you'll find on this map the green areas that have been constructed, purple in progress, and some others shown in black that just were not qualified. And Christy's going to talk about the starter idea.
Yes, I feel like we're getting so close till we started overlapping. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Okay, so now that we're familiar with what devices could be installed on Granger, I'm going to present the starter idea. So this image is showing the project area with existing utilities, property lines, Ann Arbor right-of-way. This is what's there now. And these are the starter idea devices. We are proposing 4 traffic calming devices along Granger Avenue. So let us zoom in on each one for a better view. Device number 1, we're proposing device number 1 be a residential traffic circle at the White Street intersection. This is one of the devices you drive around. If we went back to the slide from our toolbox, we'll see that it doesn't change the existing traffic control or flow of traffic. This is not a roundabout. You don't have to go all the way around just to make a left turn. Here's the slide from the toolbox. Also remember that the residential traffic circle has reduction in mid-block speed, reduction in intersection crashes, overall crashes. There are minimal effects on cut-through traffic. Left turns might be difficult for larger vehicles. It may shift vehicles closer to the crosswalk when going through the intersection, but they are designed so that bicyclists can navigate with traffic around the circle. And then as far as any questions of if there's enough room, if there's ability for emergency vehicles, as Andrea said before, we have presented this idea to the fire department. They've given us response that they do feel comfortable. So if this is something that you as residents feel would be useful to you or would be livable with, we would move further ahead with the design portion in terms of, you know, how big, how flat, how all of that. Devices 2 and 3 are raised crosswalks. One would be at the existing Park Place crosswalk. The other would be at the existing Golden Avenue crosswalk. Again, going back to our toolbox, raised crosswalks are devices you drive over. They extend the full width of the street except for gutters, typically 18 feet wide. With a 6-foot wide center platform, there's crosswalk striping. Usually what we see with raised crosswalks are speed reductions, volume reductions, crash reductions, increased pedestrian visibility. The installation of these do comply with the American Disabilities Act. So that is what we're proposing at these 2 crossings here. And then device number 4, we're proposing a speed table. This would be located roughly 375 feet east of Golden Avenue before you hit Packard Street. And again, with the speed table, it's typically a 22-foot wide, going full width of the street, except for the gutter, a 10-foot wide center platform. What you usually see with speed tables are volume reductions, crash reductions, speed reduction. The height is designed for bicycle safety. There are no issues with permission to park vehicles on speed tables or placing trash cans on speed tables. And so now we'll discuss. This was a lot of information we just covered, but I'll put the starter idea as a whole back on the screen. And we'll spend the next chunk of time devoted to feedback and devoted to giving everyone opportunities to speak. And I know I do have raised hands.
Christy, can I address one quick question about, has U of M been brought into this discussion? I saw it in the chat.
Okay.
U of M is not typically brought in to discuss. The AAATA is. We actually have someone here right now, not that I want to put them out there, from the AAATA to review our plans and tell us if they have any issues. But we do take into consideration when drafting these plans, turn radiuses, the width of the streets, many factors that would impact any large vehicles or buses. So that has to do with fire rigs, buses, specifically garbage trucks, public works vehicles, anything like that. So I just wanted to let you all know, because I saw a question in here about that, that U of M was not directly brought into this discussion. They aren't typically, but we are happy to give them the preliminary plan, which would be the one after this. They'll cover that more later, if that is something that needs to be done. So thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. I see Brad has their hand raised. I will recognize Brad to speak.
Yes, good evening, Brad Batty. And I think we could affect the traffic circle proposal immediately. All it would take is a few trash cans. In fact, I've contemplated doing that on occasion.
Thank you, Brad. The if this is something that does have support, we can move forward with additional designing of this device.
I think I'm more enthusiastic about speed humps or whatever, but I'd be willing to try the novel approach of the small circle if it helps.
Thank you for your feedback.
Although I have seen 802 Granger have their porch demolished by a car missing the intersection somehow. Don't know how they did it, but they made a mess.
Oh, goodness. We do have a few questions in the chat box before we take other speakers. There was a question of how the location of the table was determined. So Cyrus, you can back me up or add anything onto this answer, but based on pedestrian and bicycle safety resources, these devices, traffic calming devices, are usually, they're only as effective as they are of how they're implemented. So if you put devices too close together or too far apart, it's not really as effective as it could be. So with the speed table with this device, I knew we wanted to keep things at least 500 feet apart, less than 500 feet apart, in order to maintain traffic calming throughout the entire section of Granger. So going down the neighborhood and taking a look to see with the typical dimensions of a speed table where that could fit in that section. That's just a rough distance, but they are determined based on what's feasible out in the field, in the project area, and based on those safety resources.
Yep, that's nothing major to add, just that, the device's proximity to each other or to the, in device one's case, how close is it to the end of the corridor to State and Granger? Device 4, how close is it to Packard and Granger? Trying to keep them relatively close together, but not too close, I think is a big element of this starter idea. There's a number of crosswalks, so we, in theory, had those to use as starting points. And you can see there's 2 raised crosswalks here, but instead of just making every crosswalk or most crosswalks raised crosswalks and calling it a day, we wanted to I guess we wanted to introduce everyone to the idea of different devices. So speed table in this case, because there's not a crosswalk there, and I don't think there's a significant need for a mid-block crossing there. We could always consider that based on everyone's feedback here, but if there's not a need to actually cross Granger, between Packard and Golden, then a speed table would suffice. And then again, just to speak briefly to the residential traffic circle, and all of these, we've done some preliminary work that we believe it's all technically feasible, but we do need to go through, actually making sure, we'll need to determine the trade-offs of where a traffic circle would necessarily could be placed so that it's, avoiding utilities or what the cost would be associated with that. But so these are all, I'd say these are all largely feasible, but there's, based on the feedback we received today and the feedback we will get from our partners, especially if we change starter ideas, those will help determine what another design would look like.
Thank you, Cyrus. may I also defer to you, because I have not seen any specific data, but there is another question of what are the noise impacts of these devices?
That's a good question. I don't know that we have, you know, quantitative measured data on that. Andrea, you might be able to speak better to this than I can if you because you've probably heard, you've probably spoken with more traffic calming residents than I have. I can't recall this being a significant issue that we've heard back about.
So, sorry, you are
Yeah,
correct.
no,
We-
I was just about to pass it off to you. So that's
No, you are correct. So, we have not heard any complaints. We have also tried to find research out there about, increased noise from devices and stuff like this installed in anywhere we can find it, from FHWA, from, Boulder's another, Boulder, Colorado is another place we like to look for data because they implement a lot. But we have not been able to find anything out there that device installations increase noise. We also do a 1-year follow-up survey asking questions to residents, provide us any feedback about, the devices installed. And we have never once at this point, and we've been doing that for, at least I've been with the program for about 8 years now, almost. I have not heard any noise issues at this time. So I can't point you to data that says one way or the other, but we have not heard anything at this time. Now, that might not be a great answer, but that's the answer I have, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've worked on other projects outside of Ann Arbor, installation of speed humps, speed bumps, speed tables, and I haven't heard any complaints of noise either. They do help to slow down the traffic, and the noise is just not a huge issue. In the neighborhoods, they're typically much happier having the traffic be slowed down, and not really noticing the noise associated with any bumps.
Thank you. I felt like that was my gut feeling, but I didn't want to say so without checking if there was actual feedback. I do have a few more hands raised, but I just want to give the opportunity for anyone who has not put anything in the chat or who has not had an opportunity to speak. I'd like to recognize anyone who hasn't spoken yet before we finish up some of these other talking requests.
It looks like Brad and Sherry have their hands raised, so we'll start with Brad. Do you want? Okay. It looks like Brad took his hand down, so maybe Cherry, do you have a comment or question?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I still have some concerns about the residential traffic circle at Granger and White. Is it conceivable to put a raised intersection at Granger and White? Would that be another option?
I'll speak briefly to this, not to and Christy and Lori, if you want to speak as well, by all means. It's in general, raised intersections are feasible. They are fairly, in terms of what we need, in terms of the design needs, that in order to for the fire department to sign off on it, they need to be quite large. So they tend to extend fairly, a little bit further, like in all 4 directions in this case than one might expect, just so that the fire truck can sit stably on the intersection as needed, especially depending on where fire hydrants are. So, like for instance, that fire hydrant that's at the northeast corner of that intersection, it might need to extend quite a bit, or at least further than one might expect to the east in order for that, in order for a fire truck to sit stably on it.
So
Um,
would another option be just another raised crosswalk? Because I see that you've got at Golden and Granger, you have a raised crosswalk right next to a fire hydrant. So the raised crosswalk does not affect the fire engines as much as the intersection?
No, that's definitely possible. I think, I even kind of briefly alluded to this, that because there's already crosswalks, and they're also narrowed because of the bump outs at the locations. Making each of the locations a raised crosswalk is honestly, another starter idea potential. We still want to put something like device 4 speed table in, to make sure we had the right spacing. And we wouldn't put a raised crosswalk at every crosswalk, because as you can see, Sheehan and Park are very close together. So that'd be, too many devices in too close a space. But yeah, it's definitely possible to make device 1's location can be a few things. A raised intersection is possible, despite what I just said. That doesn't make it unfeasible. It just makes it, technically more challenging and a little bit more costly. Raised crosswalk is also possible, and it would have less of those concerns compared to a raised intersection. But
Okay,
generally speaking, the vertical devices, there's fewer. I'd say largely what's installed in various traffic calming projects across the city are largely vertical devices, and I think that's for a few reasons. One is I think there's some flexibility about where they can go that some horizontal devices don't have. And the other is, I think based on resident feedback, I think there's a lot of association with the traffic calming really has to be something you drive over. That's not entirely, we do have other devices. We do have, things you drive around do have quite a bit of, there's a track record of success with those, both in Ann Arbor and elsewhere. But so we wanted to make sure we included examples of both.
got it.
But in terms of what's possible, there's definitely some mix and match we can do. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Cyrus. I see Jeff still has his hand raised. Jeff, if there was anything that you'd like to add or comment on.
Hi, I'll make it really quick. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, I just wanted to remind our guests from the city and from the engineering company from Taylor that, and I can be corrected with these facts, but the residents on Granger have been trying to calm traffic for perhaps up to 20 years with the city. So it's been a real long haul for us. And the traffic study that was completed was in July, August. And that is when U of M is not in session. And most of the athletic events were not in session. And a lot of the traffic and volume or speed and volume of traffic comes from U of M also. And then in that regard, my other question is, I know as a thoroughfare, we receive money from the state. I had a conversation with someone from the state of Michigan in Lansing, and I believe that that contract can be broken at any time. And it seems to me that the city changed the ability to help to calm traffic based on still having a contract with the city. And I'm wondering if that contract and or the city's vision for what Granger is like, where the city transportation, driving, biking situation in the future, how that may be affected by the arrangement with the state of Michigan, number one. But then the other thing, and I appreciate the AATA representative here too, but I also want to clarify that there aren't any businesses on Granger, and Granger is a residential street. So Granger has changed quite a bit, and I know it's a growing city. But that's part of what makes it a bit more dangerous now. So I just wanted to add that, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. I have been given a brief overview of the history of changes that Granger has experienced with that original petition, with the conversion to an advisory lane. As far as the contracts or abilities of thoroughfares and whether or not that can be changed for Granger, that would fall outside of the scope of this program. So I'm not aware, unless Andrea wanted to add anything, I'm not aware of any procedure that we could take action on within this program.
Christy, you are correct. Jeff, if I think I understand what you are saying, you are referring to Act 51 funds. Per Act 51, this street is deemed, if I remember correctly, a major, which meant that you guys previously the traffic calming program used Act 51 to determine when streets fell into the local traffic calming program or not based off of their classification. Granger was one that we did realize, a little bit of history, so everyone else here knows what we're talking about, which I think, Jeff, if I'm correct, I understand this. I've been around that long. That's why I was part of this. That Granger was one of the streets that led us down the road of thinking about other maps to utilize, like the National Functional Classification. I might have said that wrong. We call it the NFC. It's SIMCOG's map, which classifies Granger as a local. So we used that with our updated program in 2019 to allow other project or other streets into the program that have been wanting to be in for a while, but they were classified off of Act 51 map as a major, and this is a local streets program. So we wouldn't want, I don't want to speak on behalf of the city in the sense that we would never ever remove anything from Act 51 or do any of that stuff, but we receive more money when it is classified a different way. So I'm not saying that this is off the table for discussion. I'm just saying, Christy, you are correct. It's outside the scope of this program. Jeff, if you want to send an email to trafficcalming@a2gov.org to discuss this further, we could have the transportation manager and whoever else part of that discussion if needed and provide a better answer than what I just gave. So just feel free, you can reach out to traffic calming and we can provide a better answer. So moving on, any other questions? Christy, I'm going to pass it back to you and Lori.
Can I just add, I'll add one last thought to that question and answer, Andrea, if that's okay. Yeah, Jeff, we might be misunderstanding your question. I do agree with Andrea's interpretation. So if we're misinterpreting, let us know. But I think that's an offline discussion for a few reasons. But I guess the biggest takeaway I'd say is that regardless of what, regardless of whether we would change that or not, how it's classified in Act 51, I think what maybe important to note is that our own traffic calming program changed to reflect and include streets like Granger. So it's not immediately clear to me, again, if we've interpreted what you said correctly, it's not immediately clear to me how reclassifying it would actually immediately help. But again, this is more of an offline discussion because whatever we would do in that space, if anything, would really be outside of the scope of the traffic calming program. So thanks.
I do want to give Rachel, thank you, Cyrus, thank you, Jeff, thank you, Andrea. We are getting towards the end of our feedback discussion time slot. I do want to give Rachel the opportunity to speak, and then I have a question from Tom that I'd like to answer afterwards. So I will go ahead and let Rachel, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm not Rachel, just to clarify. I'm Rachel, and I also live on Granger. And I just, so Rachel posted in the chat, are these traffic calming measures likely to impact the current lines? As a cyclist, I am a big fan of the current paint and lines on Granger. I do think that has done a significant part to slow traffic. And I would like to see them stay that way, even if there are additional traffic calming measures, which I really hope there will be, but so I'm just trying to figure out how the two affect each other, or if they do.
Oh, yes, I did. I don't know if I believe it was published, but I did answer thought I added a typed answer to that question. So we do not disturb any existing pavement markings. We don't take them away. We don't add more ones if they're not related to a device. So if there was, say, a raised crosswalk placed at one of these intersections, so say device 2 was placed, there would be striping along the crosswalk. And then I believe, if I'm correct, if I'm incorrect, please correct me, Andrea, but those bike lane lines would be restriped as well.
So you are correct, Christy. This is a retrofit program, so the existing road should stay, and I say should, I say that because it is, sometimes we do have to make accommodations. And like, this is a starter idea. So this is all starter idea. We come with the preliminary plan. We've done way more vetting, just gonna say that. But we don't take things away unless that's very clearly stated. So the existing, it's a retrofit program. We don't change curb lines, anything like that, with the exception of sometimes bump outs, but you guys already have bump outs, which is why they're not proposed here. They have as many bump outs as we can give you. So yes, everything should stay the way it is. These are just additional devices. And unless their pavement markings conflict with what's out there, then we look at it, but we don't like to take things away. And Cyrus, if I remember correctly, our new Ann Arbor moving together plan, the street is one of the ones that, correct me if I'm wrong, there's something with that too, where we wouldn't want to take anything away that's existing.
You're right. As Christian and Andrew said, we wouldn't modify anything. If anything needed to be sort of reapplied because of installing a device, that we would do that. But yeah, Granger is, in previous plans and in the current transportation plan is identified as, I think, to your point, it's, sounds like you make use of it as the bike facility with those pavement markings. So that our intention is to keep it that way. And so, yeah, we wouldn't change that.
Awesome. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
No problem.
And then I just want to address one last question that was in the Q&A from Tom. Tom wrote, living near the intersection of Sheehan and Granger, we regularly observe several near misses involving vehicles pulling out onto Granger. This appears to have started only since the parking spots were placed at this intersection. Is there anything that could be done to make this intersection safer? Cyrus,
Okay.
if you could add on, or Lori, if you could add on, I know that the proposed traffic calming device, device number 2 at Park Place would, because of Sheehan's closeness, it would have an effect on Sheehan as well. But if there's, but Lori, if there's a more direct solution, if that's what you were.
thought I saw on the chat, there was a little note that said Andrea would like to answer it, the question, but then that disappeared. So I wasn't sure if Andrea had a comment as well.
No, I was marking
okay.
it as answered live. You're good. Keep walking.
Okay.
Or keep going.
Yeah, so, the issue that is being discussed in this question is related to the parked vehicles, whether they're parked illegally or legally parked vehicles on the side of the street are a sight distance issue and not really able to be addressed as part of the traffic calming program. So it wouldn't be the type of issue that we would be able to accommodate in this study, but it could be looked at as part of other, I think Andrea mentioned you could email a2.gov and discuss it as part of another potential study or something that they could look into as well.
Yes, thank you, Lori. Cyrus, were you going to add anything?
No, I just, all I realized that I was just basically, I think what I was gonna offer was essentially a restated version of what Lori said, so I decided to stop.
And Tom, I don't want you or anyone else to think that if this program cannot address that's your specific concern or some of these specific concerns, that it's just thrown out. We do gather all of this feedback, and once this program is completed, once we get through the 5 steps, any other feedback related to other issues, those are still presented to the city for the engineering department to use in future work that they may do.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. I guess that's the only, I think I was gonna add something along those lines, which is that if there's a determination of a change to be made that's not within the traffic calming program, we can make it independently, as in if the program doesn't, if this project isn't, supported in the end and there's no traffic calming installed, but we determine there's a need to change something else, based on feedback we've heard through this project, we would still make those changes. So yeah, please share that feedback, and we'll take a look at it independently, and if there's a need to change anything, we'll either change it independently of the traffic calming program, or if it's we may try to coordinate the timing of a change so that it's done with the traffic calming program if a change needs to be made, but those are independent of whatever actually happens with this project through the traffic calming program.
And I was going to suggest that we, I think Cherry has some comments about the Granger and White intersection and device number 1, the starter idea of the traffic circle. And we can, we have polls further ahead that actually you can vote on those types of options and those ideas. So maybe we can move forward with into that section. And that would help understand if that option is desired or not desired, or if another option is preferred.
Yes, thank you, Chris. So I think we've had good discussion on this starter idea. We're going to move on to polling. And again, I'll pull up each of these devices and we'll launch a poll on whether or not you support them. So device number 1, we'll launch a poll here. Question reads, do you support device number 1, residential traffic circle at White Street? There are 4 options to vote on. Yes, I support this device and live in the project area. Yes, I support this device but do not live in the project area. No, I do not support this device and live in the project area. Or no, I do not support this device and do not live in the project area. The last time I checked, everyone said they did live in the project area, so I shouldn't see.
Also, Christy, because we heard some feedback about possibly wanting a raised intersection here, I took the initiative and added a part 2 to this device. So you can like both the raised circle or the residential traffic circle and the raised intersection. We just want to see. preference here so that we can go back, reevaluate, and make sure that the preliminary plan addresses your guys' all concerns. So you have a second one here that says, do you also support a raised intersection at White Street? So one or the other, but you can still like both of them. And that is, yes, I support this device and live in the petition project area. Yes, I support this device and do not live in the petition project area. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition project area. No, I do not support this device and do not live in the petition project area. Christy, I apologize for jumping in, but I thought I'd add
No.
that for you.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
I was about to finish that up. I was like, wait, no, there's another question. We're at 87% participation. If there's anyone who has not finished polling and would like to. I think we can close the poll and share the results. So it looks like here with device 1, 86% of respondents have said that they do support device number 1, the residential traffic circle at White Street, and live in the project area. We do have a response of non-support. We also have, but the good news is we have 100% support on a raised intersection instead of a traffic circle. So that's great to have 100%. All right, so let's move on to device number 2, raised crosswalk. We'll have a poll on device number 2 only. I know device 2 and 3 are shown in this picture, but this poll question that will pop up is only for device 2. Again, poll question reads, do you support device number 2, raised crosswalk at East Park Place? We have 4 options. Yes, I support this device and live in the area. Yes, I support this device but do not live in the area. No, I don't support this device and live in the area. No, I don't support this device and do not live in the area. All right, I think we can end the poll. We're still only getting 87% participation, but it's been consistent. So of the people who have responded, there's 100% support of device number 2, a raised crosswalk at the intersection of Granger and Park Place. I love it. So we'll do the same thing, same question, but for device number 3, there's a raised crosswalk here at Golden Avenue. Poll question is, do you support device number 3? And we can go ahead and close the poll. We have all of our participants answered, sharing the result. There is 100% support for this device. I do want to comment, there was a comment dropped in the Q&A, how many people, asking how many people are actually participating in this meeting. Are only a few of us representing the whole neighborhood? Are those who are not at this meeting going to be able to have input? I will say that this meeting, the notice of this meeting was provided to all residents within the project area. It is recorded and will be put on the project website for anyone who might not have been able to attend. When we do our revision of this plan and create the preliminary plan and mail out the information for the self-guided tour ahead of meeting number 2, again, all of that is sent out to the project area addresses. So everyone who's impacted or who's considered part of this project area are given the information for these meetings, these designs, and they have the opportunity to participate in the questionnaire and the final polling. But this is a resident initiated effort. So if residents choose not to participate, they won't have input. But we do give all of the residents multiple opportunities to participate in this project and in providing their feedback. But we'll go ahead and move on to the poll question for device number 4. So here was device number 4, a speed table. The poll question should pop up. It'll read, do you support device number 4, speed table east of Golden Avenue before Packard Street? Wow, this is the one I thought would get the most pushback on. Can go ahead and close the poll. You have everyone got their answers in, and we have 100% support. I love it. Those are the results. Oh, popped up, closed. So that was it. Those were the 4 devices that we proposed, and we polled on an alternate for device number 1. I really appreciate you all sharing your feedback and participating in this discussion, and this is really good feedback for us to move on as we continue the design. So before we wrap up this meeting, I'll explain the last 2 steps of the program and then give everyone a timeline. The next step is meeting number 2. Meeting 2 will consist of 2 parts. There's a self-guided tour and a Zoom meeting. That Zoom meeting is scheduled for February 8th. For the self-guided tour, like I just commented, you will receive a mailing packet sometime in January. It'll contain the preliminary plan, which is this starter idea that we've given you today, but accounting all of the feedback and the polling that we've discussed. It'll have device images and device descriptions, which can be utilized to complete the self-guided tour prior to that February Zoom meeting. Device locations will be marked in spray paint on the pavement, and we'll display the device image and a description on a temporary sign near each of those locations. And you can also use Google Street View to conduct the self-guided tour. Everything you'll need will be in that packet, and you can either walk through Granger or you can do it online, because I know at that point the weather might be kind of yucky outside. Again, the meeting number 2 Zoom portion is scheduled for Wednesday, February 8th at 6 p.m. During the meeting, we'll present the preliminary plan, answer questions, and poll the audience on each of the devices. It'll be very similar to what we just did with the starter idea, but we won't have to go through the toolbox. We won't have to go through all of this introductory information. And after that, our last step is final polling. All residents and property owners will be mailed the final polling package, which contains a description letter, the final plan, and final poll. Just like the initial questionnaire, you'll have the option of submitting your poll by mail or completing the poll online. To continue moving forward in the traffic calming process, greater than 50% response support is required. So if we only get 2 people to respond to complete the poll, one says support, one says do not support, the plan cannot move forward. If we get 3 people to fill out the poll, 2 say yes, 1 says no, then the plan can move forward. It has to be greater than 50% of the responses have to be in support. If this criterion is met, our team will request support from the Transportation Commission at their May meeting and request City Council's approval for construction at their June meeting. If this project receives approval from City Council, a construction date will be determined. So here are the dates for those next steps. February 8th, meeting number 2. March 21st is when the final polling card will be mailed to all of the project area addresses. April 10th is that deadline to either submit it, to complete it online, or to have mailed in your paper response. May is when the Transportation Commission meeting, we'll attend the May meeting for requesting support. And then our team will attend the June meeting for City Council for final approval. The exact dates, because the 2023 council schedule hasn't been created, I believe, the exact dates will be updated at meeting 2. So I know it says May, June. There'll be exact dates by the time we meet next. And then that's it. So on behalf of the traffic calming team.
Christy, I
Yep.
see that we have a question.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Sherry, I see that you put in there, who is invited to these meetings? So are people invited on White, Shaheen, Park, Golden streets, all invited? How far up those streets? So a little background on how the project area is determined. So the project area is determined by the resident petitioner. So whoever the petitioner was for this project area determines the limits of the project. That is outlined on page 8 of the traffic calming guidebook. So the only people who receive a formal invite and mailed meeting materials is people in that project area, which was determined by the resident initiated petition. City staff do not determine that, but that is outlined in the guidebook. So anyone is welcome to attend this meeting though. So meeting 1 and 2, anyone from those streets can come. They can provide their input on these polls. That's why we ask, are you in the project area or outside the project area, so that we can tailor the feedback and all of that stuff as well, and use the data from it. However, to be very clear, the final poll will only be mailed to residents in the project area, and only they can poll, and only their polling responses will be used to determine if this project continues to move forward to the Transportation Commission for support, and then ultimately City Council for construction approval. So I hope that answered your question on that one. And then I also see another question here about putting something in the middle of the road on Granger and White intersection. I do not recommend that because it could be more confusing to drivers and ultimately make it an unsafe environment. And I'm not sure, I just don't recommend that as a city official, but doesn't mean that, yeah, Cyrus, you can add in on that one if you'd like, but if we had the police and fire here, they probably say, please don't do that. It could impact their response times if necessary, or if ever needed on your street.
Yeah, I'll offer that the intentions are good, and there's even, you know, a concept in traffic and transportation, you know, practice right now related to, you know, sort of temporary devices. But yeah, we wouldn't encourage you to do that with on a guerrilla basis. So
Yeah, we want to use, you know, approved and standard traffic control measures within the intersections to control the traffic, such as stop signs and things of that nature. So I wouldn't recommend using the traffic cones. It probably would confuse people, and with a lot of pedestrians and motorists both interacting in that space, we just wouldn't want to make it confusing for anybody.
Thank you for answering that question. I do see we have some hands raised, but I know we're past the 7:30 mark. So I will offer the opportunity to talk. I just want to ask if we can launch the demographic poll that we had put up in case anyone needs to get out of the meeting. I do want to say thank you on behalf of the traffic calming team. Thank you for attending this meeting. If you have any other questions or concerns that we can't get to before this meeting closes, please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information is on there. The project website is up there. There is an anonymous demographic survey that the city uses to try and gain a better understanding of who we're reaching and find ways that we can improve public engagement efforts. If you need to run out of here, please complete that survey before you go. Otherwise, I saw Sherry, you had your hand up, and I wanted to recognize you and let you speak if you still had something you wanted to add.
No, I think I'm all set. I will have to get into the guidebook because I'm really curious who has been invited to be part of this group. So I was hoping to get an answer for that tonight, but I will go look up the guidebook. Thank you.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, Sherry, I can tell you who was invited.
Oh, I would
It's
love-
it's everyone from Granger, from State to Packard, and 100 feet in on each street from each intersection.
That's
So-
very helpful.
Yep, sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't very clear on that. I apologize, but thank you for asking the question again so I could clarify it for you.
Thank you.
And I'll go back to this last slide again, but I did want to show you, well, any of these. So all of, where's my little laser? I believe I did have another graphic where all of the ones in the project area were highlighted, but this one does not have it. So I believe there are a couple addresses here at the corner, and then all of these addresses that are along Granger here and on the other side. And it may include these corner ones as well, at the corner of Packard and Granger. And then I also saw, Jeff, you had your hand raised.
Yes, I'll make it really quick. I know we're pushed for time, but I wanted to thank everyone for participating and helping out. And my only other question is just, maybe I got confused at some point, but what about if a speed table or a speed hump in combination with other devices, whether they be drive over or drive around, if that is something that would help to slow down the traffic, maybe 10 to 15 percentage points, depending on how it's laid out. I know there could possibly be maybe a guesstimate or an analysis of maybe 2 or 3 different possibilities, perhaps. I know you're taking in a lot of different information and spacing and things like that, and how different devices, drive overs or drive arounds are spaced and all that. But at our next meeting, is there a possibility for different plans that can be voted on, where perhaps with some of the verbal comments that we've made, some of those other devices like a speed hump or a speed table could at least be talked about as for possible implementation, if I'm making myself clear. So I'm getting tired, and I thank you.
I think what I'm hearing, Jeff, is that you're asking at our next meeting, because we've had a couple different directions where the feedback from today has gone, is will we have more than one preliminary plan to present? Is that what, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, if you can still hear me. No,
Yes,
I'm
I
just,
can.
you can hear me?
Yep.
Yep, thank you. Sorry about that. No, just for example, the plan we voted on, maybe it might be the best fit, but I know that there are other devices and other arrangements that can be made. What about if they're, and I'm just supposing here, what about if there's a plan too that includes, let's say, speed tables instead of raised crosswalks, et cetera, et cetera. I just am concerned that we by voting 100% or 84% or whatever it was on the starter plan, we've eliminated the ability to use some other drive around devices or drive over devices. Just because with my experience, and that can be different from other persons, but even the data that I basically collected on my own shows just an increase in the volume of traffic compared to when the study was taken, and also excessive speeds, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just wondering if there's a possibility that we can talk about a plan with other devices. So there are perhaps 3 or 4 different plans, or 2, that differ from the starter plan.
Thanks, Jeff. Because this program was sort of designed and approved by council, it's not been our practice to do that. And I guess I'm trying to think of what we've done sort of as an alternative or a way to sort of address any differences before we get to final design. So one is the discussion that's happening at this meeting. We obviously had a lot of support overall and somewhat mixed support for device 1. I say that as purely relative because compared to some other projects I've worked on, this has all been this is all supported overwhelmingly compared to some areas we've worked. But even I think what kind of needs to happen, the direction we need to hear from the neighborhood would be if there's significant issues with either of those ideas, and that we want to consider a different traffic calming device at location 1 or something different overall. We'll need to kind of hear that, I think, between now and over the next few months before we, as we're working on the design. So we'll obviously make sure that I think everyone on this call probably understands that. I think it's a little bit incumbent on us and on you we'll share this video, we'll share information on the project website. I do think if there needs to be a bit of a maybe grassroots agreement on what alternative direction you'd like us to pursue. But yeah, because of how it's designed by council, we don't really consider multiple options. We use the steps in this process to sort of own through or to sort of whittle through those ideas. By the time we get to.
Oh yeah, and I'm so sorry. Well, I'm just wondering if that's the case, at the beginning of this session, we were given slides of the possible options and ones that perhaps the fire department prefers or does not prefer, but we weren't able to vote on that. So it seems like we were just presented with a plan that's a starter plan and we voted. So that's basically going to be it.
So do you mind if I step in for a second?
Sure.
Jeff, I'm not cutting you off. You can finish if you had anything, but I was just going to step in. So the this is a starter idea. There are 3 plans that will be presented overall. This is the first one, just a starter idea from the feedback we received from the initial questionnaire and the petitioner, which, Jeff, are you the petitioner?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. Sorry for putting you on the spot.
That's okay.
So, and all the information in there as well. So we take all of that feedback that we've received thus far, and we create the starter idea. And the people who create it are transportation engineers, or professionals who put forth their best plan to address the concerns on the street, which is speeding. I remember seeing that in the initial questionnaire, and also the results of the matrix as well, which is on the website. If you have questions on that, I can answer that. But and so this plan is supposed to address the speeding. So it was our best foot forward. We try to make sure that we do that right off the bat, which is why you have many devices. This is actually a short stretch, surprisingly. I know it feels large to some of you. And the amount for devices is a lot, especially since you already have bump outs, which is also another device that we have in this toolkit and would have proposed as well if it wasn't already installed. So this is our best foot forward to address your speeding concerns. And so this is your one touch point. So your first one. So the plan that we actually gave to the fire marshal, the fire department, which the fire marshal is the one that has the veto power. This was the same one we presented him. So he said, yeah, he gave his sign of approval saying, yep, you can present this to the public. So this is the one we presented him. There is no changes. And so the feedback we receive from this point now, so we take the feedback from your petition submitted, as well as the initial questionnaire, and now the survey questions that we have just given to all of you, with, device 1, 2, 3, and 4, we take that back. We make sure that we are addressing the wants and needs of this area, and that it also fits into engineering best practices. Sorry, didn't mean to stumble over that word. And then we make sure that the next plan, the preliminary plan, gets painted on the road and mailed to everyone so they can react to it, see, feel, drive around it, all of that stuff. There'll be sticks in the ground explaining the device, what it's about, when the meeting is, all of that stuff right out there in the public for a walking meeting for all of you. Well, a walking, I can't remember the word we're using right now, field trip for you all to walk up and down the street. And then from there, you'll come to the virtual meeting and talk to us about how what you've observed out there, what you feel, and then we tweak the plan again for the final pull. So you do get presented with multiple options just at different points. And sometimes it changes drastically based off of the feedback received. And sometimes it doesn't change at all because the feedback received is, we like this, let's keep going. The sooner we get through this, the better. So Jeff, I think we do give you multiple plans. It's just periods throughout this process.
No, well, thank you. And I'm glad you've clarified that. I think part of it is that I submitted the petition 3 years ago.
No, I know.
I know this isn't as nice as Christmas, but it's pretty nice. So I just wanted to make sure.
No, you're good. I appreciate the feedback and the patience from everyone here. I know it's been a long process for all of you, and I know this is not your first submission into this program. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that you invited all of us in. This is actually why we have Wade Trim involved, is because of the backlog. There were so many projects in queue that we couldn't address, that we went to council. We asked for additional funding. They gave it to us, and we're trying to get through as many projects this fiscal year, which is from July 1 to June 30th. I think if I have those dates correctly. So it's from July to June. So in June 2023 is end of that month, the fiscal year will end. So we're trying to get as much as we can through then. So thank you.
No, and I really appreciate it. I'm not trying to take up anyone's time. So I very much appreciate it. And I don't speak for the group at all. So I appreciate that. The only other comment, and it's not anybody's fault here in this meeting, is part of the delay, I believe. I know there was COVID, but overall, seems like the city of Ann Arbor, with everything that's going on, could invest more monetary resources into projects like this too. And but that's something that it maybe is another discussion, not with this group, but with all the way that they spend the massive budget that they have in the COVID money. So that, to me, it could have been handled much better, and it's based on priorities. And my belief is just that, I guess I'm old fashioned, but government's here to protect us and keep us safe. And but maybe the 18-year-olds that are in office have a different view on things. So thanks for letting me talk.
No problem. Thank you for having us. Christy, Lori, sorry for stepping in so much. We do have a Transportation Commission. And there's a subcommittee for that's discussion going on about, traffic calming program and stuff like that. And, so we appreciate that feedback, and all the feedback from this meeting we will also make sure that we share with the appropriate individuals as well in relation to this program. So thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. And Sherry for coming as well. Is there any other questions? I'm going to pass it back to Christy, Lori, and Chris Wall.
If there are no other questions, I think we will wrap up the meeting. Again, I appreciate everyone who's stuck through with us and participated and provided very, very useful background information and feedback on these. I really look forward to meeting with you again in February. But until then, I hope you have a safe rest of your year. It's almost, almost the end of the year, but have a great evening. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll be in touch. Again, if you have any questions or comments or anything that you remember later on, please do not hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, everyone.